Hey everyone, it's Kelly from Gallery 7. This time I'm in front of the camera rather than behind it. I really wanted to be involved in this project. A new client drove up from Mansfield, Mass. to talk to us about this idea he had. He loves Joe Strummer, the frontman from The Clash, and in 2007 Julian Temple made a documentary film about Joe, and our client collected 3 of the movie posters, and they are in 3 different languages. And he had this idea that he wanted to replicate a English red phone booth. And I'm like, oh, I love this. So Nick is so creative, and we came up with this idea using this gorgeous red frame from Larson Jewel and then a thinner version of the frame to create the Mullins. So it looks like the windows in a phone booth from England. We cannot wait for him to see the finished product. So the following video is the process of Nick putting this whole thing together. Hope you enjoy it.
Okay, the 3 windows are cut as you saw, and the posters go in here. Let me show you something, because this you did see in the final piece, but ultimately when the frame goes around it, this of course has to be cut to length. This is going to end up being right here on the frame, and boy, this is sure an interesting project. All right. So here we are. The mat board has been cut. And I'm going to tell you why I did this in a minute. The mat board's been cut. Of course, the artwork's not in here yet. The whole thing has been pinned into the frame. So now the mat board is sitting in the frame exactly how it's going to be when it's done. And this is the moment when we begin to work with the Mullins, which are these things. So if we come in here, when I put the Mullins in, I have to get them perfectly centered on this red strip of mat board. So now the question you may have is, why not do all the measuring, build these into the frame, so these are already attached and the frame is done, and then cut the mat board? I'm telling you, no matter how carefully you measure, it would be so hard to have these already in the frame and measure the mat board to fit so perfectly that these all line up exactly the way they should. So the easier way to do it is cut the mat board and put the Mullins in to match the mat board. I hope that makes some sense, and we will show you more later. So these have to get glued in, and the problem is this is very shiny, so I have to scuff up where the glue is going to go so it has something to grab onto, and that should do it. After thinking not only deeply but philosophically about glue, I've decided that these were the options: Gorilla Glue, 5-minute epoxy, and Goop, a silicone-based glue. this is out. It doesn't stick well to shiny things, even though I roughed it up. This is a very smooth surface. No. The 5-minute epoxy would work great. The problem with this is when you get squeeze out and overflow, it's really hard to clean up, although it would hold very well. That's out. The winner is Goop, which is a silicone-based glue. It's amazingly strong, but the nice thing about this is, let's say I put some Goop on the frame and let it dry, you could kind of just roll it off. Like, remember how you could like roll off old rubber cement? So if I get squeeze out on this, it's easy to clean up. So now we're gonna glue it in with Goop. Now, if you remember earlier, I was pretty cocky and definitive about the glue. This one's out, this one's out. Goop is the one. Yeah, I wasn't happy with it. It was still a little wiggly. And so what I did was I made cleats out of epoxy putty. Let me show you over here. So what I did was, on the frame, I drilled a hole on the frame. I drilled a hole in the mullen. Then I cut a little notch out. And if you look at this shape, you can see that it's wider here than in the middle. Then I packed this with that really hard epoxy putty that just dries like a rock. So this has a cleat in it. Now, if you were going to take a lot of time to do fancy woodworking, which we don't for something like this, you may see these in some old tables. Some people use these decoratively. So imagine you were to chisel this out and then cut a corresponding piece that is the same shape. It would get glued in there. So in a sense, what we've really done is made the same thing. It's wider here and here than it is in the middle. And let's take a look over here. It's thinner there, and this rock hard epoxy runs through here and here. And that's much more solid than it was before. And the other thing I'm going to do is, when this is together, in behind the frame, I'm going to put a brace here and here, because I'm still afraid if someone picks it up like this, that these could separate. So the goal really is to make sure these will never ever move, and I think we have solved this problem. Okay, so as you do projects like this, they evolve and your thinking changes, and you sort of thinking about it over time. How do I want to put this together? Originally I said I was going to add some braces here behind the mullins. Again, you know, even if you nailed these in with glue, if you nailed them in from here and you picked it up like this would still be over time susceptible to this separating. So I decided just to go with a full strainer back. Now, when you pick it up from here, there's no flexing. With the little tenons that I made, these should stay forever. I think this is engineering-wise worked out perfectly, and I really can't wait for a client to see it.
Oh, I like
Come
those
look.
too.
Come look. Now, what we did was we made these out of a smaller version of the same frame. It didn't bring the price down because I'll show you why in a minute. But ready?
Wow. This is mine? All right.
gorgeous?
Look at Joe. Look at him. God bless him. Oh, that looks great.
It really came out nice.
That looks great.
Now,